The bike toilet's up here. It's already on. Now this one is not. Yeah, it's on now. Yeah. You also have a ticket, and then make sure you don't lose that because we're gonna give away some stuff. There's also an index card in your folder because later on during the panel discussion, we're going to have three couples that will be up here with various family situations and marital situations. And after we introduce them, who they are, and what they're even after the workshops, if you have questions, we want you to not forget what you're going to ask. We want you to write them down on the index card, and you have paper as well if we run out of room. And we'll put a basket out, not basket, but one of the offering plates on the bucket. And if you want to drop your questions in, that gives us an idea of what kind of questions and who to forward them to answer. If you want to hold them and ask them, off the cuff, that's fine. But we encourage you at the break before the panel to write your questions down, drop them in the bucket, and they'll answer them from that if you care to. Um, there was a little bit of incorrect information just to clear up. We're going to do these works. You're not going to flip flop. We're going to do them back to back. The first one, Reverend Harris is going to come. Then we're going to have just a little bit of a break before we roll into the second one on the balancing act. Then we'll have another small break, and then the panelists will take their places. Anybody have any questions about the order of the day? Okay, well, let's give a round of applause and a blessing to Reverend Harris as she
Amen. Good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
Certainly we thank God for your presence here on this glorious Lord's Day. As you've heard it said, this is the day that the Lord hath made. My husband used to say he made all of them. And so we thank God for your presence, that you thought it gain and not robbery to come out to this glorious occasion where we can enhance ourselves and through God's word and through God's efforts and our obedience, help us to be better people. Reverend Taylor in his prayer had mentioned that we would go out and we would spread what we have learned here on today. But also, even before we do that, we want to be hearers not only, but doers ourselves. Amen? Because oftentimes we can go out and we can tell folk to do a whole lot of things that we are not doing ourselves. Amen? And so today we want to self-reflect. And we want, hey baby, we want to self-reflect, and we want to put the mirror on ourselves, that we might be the ones in need of possibly some correction today, or possibly some type of improvement on today. I have a few little handouts that we're going to pass out, and we may stick to them, we may not, as the Spirit leads, but we're going to get started. I'm speaking into a mic because I've kind of strained my voice a little bit, but we're going to get through. We're going to get through. I have this addiction of eating ice, which is a horrible thing to do. Thank you, sir. I have been blessed with the task of sharing this morning or speaking to you on the topic of effective communication. Effective communication. Now, we all know that what I'm doing right now, what we do among ourselves, is communicating. We all know that we can communicate by means of writing, by means of body language, verbally, spoken language, so on. We are communicating. But what we are interested in this morning is not only communicating, but to communicate effectively. Effectively. There's a difference. It goes another level. It goes to another level. I knew something was wrong. I don't have my glasses. I just say something that's just not right. We're going to pull it together. Yeah, I've come to really depend on these reading glasses, Jeanette. Lord have mercy. I tell you the truth. Communication is the process of sharing information, thoughts, and feelings between people through speaking, writing, or body language. But effective communication extends the concept to require that what is being said is received, this is key, and understood by someone in the way in which it was intended. Are you with me? Effective communication goes beyond that concept, whereas it requires that which is being said, that it would be received and understood. That's the difference. By someone in the way in which it was intended. Some of our major conflicts come from lack of understanding. You've communicated something and the person heard you and they interpreted one way and you meant it another way, and it's off. It's gone. It's it. And so therefore we want to be very conscious, more conscious of the way in which we are saying things, how we say it, the way we are saying it, that we might be successful in reaching our goal, meeting our goal. In other words, what I say to you, I want you to receive it, I want you to understand it in the way in which I intended it. You'd be surprised how many times I preach, and sometimes I don't know if it's me or it's the people, but you can preach. And I never forget one day, I preached over at Union Baptist, and I went into the study. A young lady came and she said, "Reverend, you really preach. You said, da, 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 da," and everything she said, I didn't say. And I was, oh my goodness, is it me or is it her? And all I did was nod. You could have, but it was not what I said. And so her interpretation was really off, or either there was something wrong with me and in the way in which I delivered that word. Encoding. We internalize what it is we want to say. It's already in us. It's in us. And then when we say it, once it comes out, then the encoding process is over. The person that had heard it, the decoder, then they, in other words, give it back to us. That will let us see whether or not the communication process has been successful. In other words, have I reached my goal? Let me give you a good example. If I say, "Good morning," I believe it's going to be a beautiful day. That was in me. I said it. It's out. It's gone. I've released it, and it's gone. Now, being shared verbally or spoken, I've completed that encoding process. Now, how is it going to be received? Someone says, yes, it does look like it's going to be a beautiful day. That went together. That went together. In other words, that communication process was a success. It was a success. The encoding and decoding process was a success. The goal was indeed met. How often do we have an encoding process and a decoding process, and they do not go together? Just like the example that I just gave you. Kid come home, "My teacher hates me." Okay, that's out there. How do we decode that? Look how open-ended that is. What would be our response to that?
Why do you say that? Why you think so? Yeah.
I left out something. "My English teacher hates me." "My English teacher hates me." The decoding response would be, "You must be having problems in English.
Mm.
Do you know 90 some odd percent of the time what people say and what the problem actually is are two different things?
That's right. Mm.
We're not mind readers, but people tend to think that we are.
Mm.
And so what we're going to do this morning, I'm going to do a little shift. We're going to look at two passages of scripture where we look at some communication pitfalls, and we're going to discuss these. They're in your packet. I want you to turn to the back. I want you to turn to the back. I want you to look at some communication pitfalls. The first one that we're going to look at is the one, the forbidden fruit, where we'll be discussing Adam and Eve. What do I have, 45 minutes? Okay. Someone briefly tell us the story about Adam and Eve. Someone briefly tell us, just no frills, just the story of Adam and Eve.
That Eve was being deceived. Um, her Adams, as far as I see it, should have asked Eve to, to listen to. He was the man in charge.
Uh-huh.
So by him not to up, she was deceived, Pastor.
Okay. Now, you know that Adam is head of his household. Eve did not communicate to Adam before she ate the fruit. If she had seen her spouse as her helpmate or teammate, perhaps she would have made a better decision. Perhaps she would have never eaten of the fruit. Oftentimes, when we step out of our roles, for whatever the reason, we tend to do things against what God would have us to do. If Eve had only talked to Adam about Satan, trying to influence her and not following God's orders, then she would have been better equipped to make a sensible decision. Now, this is something that it has not started at that point. This should have been an understanding long before this incident arrived. Couples need to discuss how we are going to interact one with another. In other words, if there's something that costs over $50, then we're going to consult one another. Are you with me? In other words, don't go off and just do whatever you want to do. There should have been some communication among the two of them, whereas I don't make certain decisions without consulting with you. Not only does it minimize conflict, but it's just respect. When you're in a relationship together, what the other person thinks, feels, matters. And that's one of the problems today. We don't care
Mm.
what the other one thinks. We don't care what the other person feels. We just don't care. We are a don't caring society these days, but some things we need not change.
Mm.
Some things that we are allowing to slip away, we need to get it back.
That's right.
Starting now. Starting now. And so here we find that she is in a dilemma. She's not widowed like I am. She has a husband, someone to consult with, but she chose not to. So in other words, it had not been discussed that this is how we do business in our household. You just went off and made a decision without consulting me. And after the fact, now I find out about it. When is what? Too late. Adam didn't express his displeasure at the idea of Eve eating the fruit, as much as she did not ask his opinion. He did not go out of his way to stop her. Oftentimes, it's a shame what happened in relationships. Sometimes, and you'll see today, there are several mitigating forces that break down relationships. Technology. Technology is one thing today. It can be good. It can be good. But anything abused and misused can be to our detriment. Technology. Well, what do you mean? How often do any of you all see two people in the car together, two people in a restaurant together, two people just sitting side by side on some form of technology? We're not as personable as we used to be. The texting language is to the extent that it will really hinder our young people with SOLs. Because you're slashing and cutting words. That stuff becomes habitual until sooner or later it's internalized, it's in here, you'll start talking just like that. And it will be a real habit to break. And so technology can be a pitfall in our lack of being able to communicate effectively. What else can be a pitfall? Third-party influences. Well, what do you mean by that? Every morning I get up and I fix my husband biscuits. Every morning I get up and I fix my husband some good old biscuits. He loves biscuits. And I happened to mention it one day at work. And somebody said, "Child, if I were you, I wouldn't get up early in the morning."
All right.
I wouldn't get up early in the morning like that and fix no biscuits when you could just go ahead on to Walmart and get you a can of biscuits, burst them things up, and all of a sudden, the understanding that he and I had, I've let a third party interfere with that.
All right.
Think about that thing. And she might never save me a whole lot of time. Someone else has interfered with our communication process. What else can interfere with our society at large? With society's greedy self? Well, what do you mean by that? Someone calls the house. "Hello, may I speak to Mr. Younger?" "I'm sorry, he's not in. This is his wife. Can I help you?" "No, I'll call him back." And then when they call back, you find that, what do they want? They want to know if you all need windows. Replacement windows. Well, I'm a part of this household too.
All right.
That you could have said to me. I could have passed that on to my husband. They will contribute to separation in a household. What? They will show disrespect if you let them. What are some pitfalls? Technology, third-party influences, and society can contribute to communication pitfalls. And so we need to guard against the way in which we communicate one to another. What do you mean we need to guard against it? We need to be very conscious of the way in which we communicate with one another. Let's turn back into your packet where you see what is effective communication.
Reverend Harris, while you're turning back,
Go
I'm
ahead.
not sure if you're going to get back to Adam and Eve, but I'm glad you brought the third party up because
Uh-huh.
that third party intervened in the garden.
Yes,
Satan was that third party.
absolutely.
I mean, and we tend to say, well, Adam, it was Adam's fault, Eve's fault, but that third party made all the difference.
And thank you, Pastor Horn, because let's say this. Do you know how subtle a third party can be? To the extent that sometimes you don't even realize what's happening to you. Always, this is key. You might want to write this down. Plan with the end in mind. Sometimes you do things and you don't realize what the end might be. Plan with the end in mind. That's one thing about our children today. And oftentimes I try to get this in my children's spirit. Children today don't have good foresight. They don't have good foresight. It's the now. It's right now. It's right now. It's right now. But there are some things that you can do that a little bit down the road, it'll come back and haunt you. All this foolishness on Facebook, all this posing, and then you go look for a job, and they go out on Facebook and see who you really are. Why would you want someone to know where you are at all times? 24/7. We're getting ready to go to the Bahamas. Wow, now they know that the house will be just foolishness. But third party intervention influences are very subtle. Sometimes they approach you as if they're working and speaking on your behalf. And they are just as far against you as the east is from the west. That's a song. Who sings that song? Now, I know you all know this old school song. It says, a friend of mine told me that you'll never amount to anything. A friend of mine told me that the best thing in life would be to set you free. But then she said, I just got to, I was surprised to say, I just got the news today that you're doing fine with a friend of mine. Y'all get that? Y'all get that? Huh? She talked her into leaving this man. Gladys Knight sings that. Talked to a friend of mine told me that you never amount to anything. A friend of mine, that the best thing in life would be to set you free. But I just got the news today. Wasn't I surprised to say you're doing, I ain't going up like that, fine, with a friend of mine. But my whole point is that talked her right out of that relationship. Why? Because she's looking at him. She's been looking at him the whole time. And foolish you walk right out of it. And guess what? They're doing just fine. And so deception, those type of influences can really be very subtle to the extent that yes, you do not know what is happening to you. While we're there, let's go ahead on back to Mary and Martha. Let's come back. Let's come back. I said we're gonna flip around a little bit because I had a change of thought, a change of heart here. Thank you, thank you. At any time, please intervene and help grow us today. Look at this story here. Luke, the 10th chapter, the 38th through the 42nd verses. Look at this story. As Jesus and his disciples continued on their way to Jerusalem, they came to a certain village where a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. Her sister Mary sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he taught. But Martha was distracted by the big dinner she was preparing. She came to Jesus and said, Lord, doesn't it seem unfair that my sister just sits here while I do all the work? Tell her to come and help me. But the Lord said to her, my dear Martha, you are worried and upset over all these details. There's only one thing worth being concerned about. Mary has discovered it, and it will not be taken away from her. Here you have at Martha and Mary's house, Jesus had come into their home. Do you think that this is fair? But here I'm here doing all this cooking, and she's sitting right here doing nothing. Let's stop right there. Let's look at some communication pitfalls in this text. Jesus is there. Obviously, we can say what the issue is. Martha is upset because Mary is not helping her prepare this large meal. Now, had they discussed that she would be helping her? Well, in those days, women, that was somewhat of their role. So we're going to say that you think that was understood. You think that was understood. Mhm. That was understood, but what happened? Somebody did something different than they normally do. Have you ever been in a relationship and somebody do something all the time until one day they do something different? It's out of the norm. It's not their normal behavior. A lot of times that's what gets our attention. And so look at the communication. Did Mary, apparently she didn't, say to Martha, listen, I'm going to be talking to Jesus. So, you okay in here by yourself? No, she didn't say it. She didn't say that. Was it assumed that Mary would help Martha? Yes.
I was just thinking, Martha, I'm not talking about the right word. Who said that Jesus is Mary? I'm thinking about Martha. I mean, listening to Paul is that what Jesus said to Martha, she hadn't thought about it. In other words, is it more important that you cook for Jesus or listen to him? Do we get that same? Because when people in the church, especially when you come to church in the morning, and if something is not going on up there, everybody in the back here is talking, and they miss a whole lot of stuff that was being said by the pastor or whoever is teaching or talking. So what is more important? That's the middle ground.
In the sense that we are more sanctimonious over the Bible than the God in the Bible. Let me tell you what happened. Situation at another church. Elderly woman, set her purse and her Bible on the communion table. Why did she do that? In front of this particular deacon. And from his upbringing, you just don't do that. You worship that table.
Yeah.
And he slapped that Bible and that purse right into the floor.
What?
And said, you don't put that on that sacred table. Little did he know that it would have pleased God for him to respect the person.
All right.
And not the thing.
That's right.
Not the thing.
Exactly.
Do you think God is more concerned about a table? No, this was an elderly woman. It was just a million reasons to respect this woman. First of all, it was a woman. There was an elderly woman. Oh, okay. That's just something to his mentality. So far off in church, Sunday after Sunday, week after week. But guess what? If you don't apply it to your everyday life, we're missing it. We're missing it, Stacy.
We have to use wisdom if we're to respond. Because oftentimes in those types of situations, when somebody come to us to tell us, do you know what so-and-so did? Oftentimes we side with one or the other, or we get involved when we shouldn't. So we have to really use wisdom in how we respond, because we can make matters much worse
Absolutely.
than what it started out to be.
Absolutely. And on that note, would it have been the worst thing in the world for Mary to say, now, did Mary have an obligation? Did Mary really have an obligation when she was not in the place that she normally is? Now, in the context of what Deacon Heisman said, in regard to what's more important, yes. Yes, Jesus is more important. Jesus is more important, as my niece would say. But at the same time, what harm would it have been to say, listen, I'm going to be over here. I just want to sit with Jesus. I just want to hear what he has to say. Are you going to be okay? Do you need my help? But she totally neglected. So we're talking about from that aspect. She totally neglected even being a part of what was going on. Now, what was most important, when we view that from that aspect, yes. Where Jesus is where we ought to be. Where Jesus is where we ought to be. Okay? And go ahead, son.
It goes back to really from the beginning, the plan.
Uh-huh.
They never got together, Mary and Martha.
That's it.
And then the same way in the church. We know who gonna do what in the church after a period of time. You know your members, what they will do, who you can actually do certain tasks. But so often, we just take folk for granted.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, Martha that said, "Bird, you've been helping me. Now why you?"
Mhm.
That's why she was so upset
Mhm.
because her responsibility. She used to be with her sister,
Uh-huh.
but at that particular time, she saw that down the road,
Mhm.
Jesus making preparation for prepare him for his burial.
Right.
She didn't understand that,
Uh-huh. Mhm.
but still, they didn't communicate.
They didn't communicate. It was lack of communication.
Lack of communication.
And the text lead us to believe that she expected that help because why did she get upset? If she's used to doing it by herself, what's the problem?
Right.
What's the problem? Somebody, go ahead.
Yes, concerning the communion table,
Okay.
isn't that supposed to be sacred? When I was in New York, we had a new minister came in, and he was teaching Bible study. And his teaching, he was sitting on the communion table, teaching. And one of the deacons confronted him and told him that he's not supposed to sit on the table. But then with word for word, and I think he dismissed the deacon.
Mhm.
And sooner or later, I guess they put him out of church, but he did come back. Now, as far as sitting on the communion table, don't that show respect as a virtue of some sacred? The
We can
communion
say,
table? Disrespect,
right,
you
right.
know.
We believe we're in a sacred place right now in the sanctuary. Yes, we believe the communion table is sacred. The podium, the altar, all of that, the pulpit. We believe that each pew we have blessed, each stained glass window. And so we believe we're on holy ground. But when it comes to things and people, in God's sight, people outweigh things. Now, what happened from what you just said was just a matter of just simply disrespect and negligence. Just that act was just lack of reverence or what have you. But things never outweigh people in God's sight. And that reaction did not warrant a reaction that didn't display love. Let's say, for instance, he wanted her to move that. Miss such and such, can I sit this somewhere else for you? How far is the communion table from a chair or from a pew or held it for? But his reaction, the Bible speaks of not allowing someone to cause you to fall into sin. Just because someone else sinned, now we go out sin them. From our reaction. Sometimes we show people a better way from our reaction. I'm going to show you Christ from the way I'm going to handle this situation. Because people are watching us all the time. I oftentimes think at work, when you say you're a Christian, people are going to hold you to that. They allow themselves to do whatever they want to do, but they're going to hold you to what you say you are. From your mannerism, from what you do, from what you say. And so they are watching us. And his response to what she did was just totally unacceptable. Totally unacceptable. I mean, he did so many things. Could have broke a relationship between he and that woman. That's very hurtful. And this is an elderly woman at that. I mean, just so many, many, many bad choices he made in that situation. This particular story is something that we can look at in regards to not only Adam and Eve, a couple, and the pitfalls in which we notice among them, but also these are siblings, these are sisters who lack of communication, which lets us know that in every aspect of our lives, you have to really be on guard when it comes to all that you say and all that you do. I don't know how much time I have, but I want to say a couple more things before we wrap things up. When it comes to communication, people tend to think that I am an effective communicator if I speak my mind. Not so.
That's right.
Not so. In fact, that can really be foolishness. Because speaking your mind, there again, you're looking at the bigger picture. who are you hurting?
Mm.
What harm is being done? Pick and choose your words. I listened to my children one day, this was years ago, and I had to sit them down. There were some Nike socks or something, and one of them was looking for their Nike socks. And they have this thing whereas they actually wear each other's stuff anyway. I mean, and I'm talking about my son and my daughter, they be wearing each other's sweatpants or socks, you know, anything that he can get away with wearing of hers, and anything, you know. He bought a pair of sweatpants one day, she liked them, and if Evan sees something that my son has, she'll get it and act like she don't know where it is, and all of this foolishness. But somebody was looking for their Nike socks. Do anybody know what my Nike socks are? First of all, yeah, you're not getting anything out of me like that. My mother always said, she said, one thing about you, you always said people are going to respect you. If I'm going to show respect, I expect respect in return. And so I stopped trusting, you know what, can't you ask a little better than that? Because in your asking, we may help you look for them. But now, if you're going to demand and walk around like, you know, you have a major attitude, I could be looking right at the socks and I'm not going to do it. And so there again, the way in which we handle these communication skills with care, we can reach our goal. Communicating is one thing, but being effective, I want to get my point across. I want to reach my goal in that me as the sender, I want you to receive this. I want you to understand this information the way in which I intend. And the only way that can happen, I have to be a willing participant. We could go on all day, and I know that we're going to discuss some conflicts and so on, some things in which dealing with communication that have caused some major issues in relationships. Communication is a big picture. It is really big. It's really big. Why? Because it's in every aspect of our lives. And you will see that we are more hearers than listeners. We are never taught to listen. We're taught to listen little if at all. Yes, we say these things, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. We say all of these little cliches and things of that nature. But nothing in school ever really, we're not really taught to listen. We're taught to speak and to project, and you know, you get all this speech therapy and you take speech and all of that. But listening, be slow to speak. Because once something comes out, can you take it back? Worse than a 2-edged sword. I tell you, you could beat somebody down and it wouldn't be worse than you saying something ugly out your mouth that you could never take back. And so we must really be careful in the way in which we utilize the tongue, because it can do a lot of damage. Let's build one another up. Let's build one another up. Listen more than you talk. Yes, God did give us 2 ears and 1 mouth. Listen. Sometimes people need us to listen. Think before you speak. Be slow to speak. Think before you speak. Sometimes when you think, some things you may not say at all. You may not say at all. Remember, communication is verbal and it's nonverbal. Sometimes when folk don't say anything to you, they've said a whole lot. I do that at my house all the time. My children will say something to me, I don't say a word to them, and they got it. Remember years ago when you come up and you know about that look? They know exactly what that look means. They know exactly what it means. And guess what? They clear the room. I promise you. They get out of my way. Now tried to present myself to be big and bad, but for whatever reason, the room cleared. It's that look. Resist the urge to say the first thing that comes to your mind. That's just lack self-control. That's just no control, no discipline. Just to say the first thing that comes to your mind. You know, I have a sister like that. That's not funny. That's not cute at all. That's not good. That is not good. God would not have us to just say any and everything. God wants us to speak to one another in love. Imago Dei, we're the image of God. So why don't we just say anything out of our mouths? Oh. Clarify what's going on by asking open-ended questions. Make sure we spoke of that earlier. Sometimes things are just so open. Reverend, you go ahead and take care of the program. Well, what do you mean? Take care of the house. Do you want me to get the speaker? Do you want me? What actually do you mean? When I tell you to take care of it, that involves so many things. A lot of components go into getting a program together. So what are you telling me to take care of? Take care of it. All right, I know you can take care of it. And then next thing you know, both of us have 2 speakers. Oh, well, no, I meant the part about. But you didn't say that.
Or you do something that needs to disapprove. Why
Yes,
should you do that?
exactly.
You told me to take care of
You told me to. In other words, you had the utmost confidence in me. What have I did? Was it going to be all right with you? And Pastor Holmes don't know nothing about it. Oh, I thought you were going to say something to him. No, I thought you told me to take care of it. But I thought you were going to go tell him that you told me to take care of it. And he's going like, oh, we have a program tomorrow? I'm supposed to be out of town. Ask people for feedback. Get understanding and clarity. Ask people. Let's put pride aside and ask if you don't understand. Do you know how many people go like this? I don't know what you're saying. And don't use a big word. Oh. Yeah. Ask. 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 We need to put pride aside and ask. Watch people's facial expression and reactions. They tell you a lot. They tell you a lot. It tells you a lot. Sometimes people will say one thing, but what they say, the spoken word and the expression is inconsistent. It's inconsistent. Okay, how many of you all coming back tomorrow? How many of you all coming back tomorrow for the evening service? We only be here 4 hours. Let me get a show of hands.
That's it.
And if they get I come back, don't you tell nobody. Say things to build people up. And monitor your own body language and reactions. People are looking at us. People are looking at us. And so we need to represent the one who created us in a positive way. Comments? Comments?
Cheryl, I'd like to say that ones who didn't attend missed the dynamic presentation.
Bless yourself. Well, normally, yeah, we oftentimes preach to the choir.
Well, I was just telling Sis Brown here that you're doing a marvelous job. And so many things on communications, I guess Deacon Highsmith and myself, and I'm not sure who else has been married more than 45 years, but
Yes.
I had to learn to listen.
Yes.
I had to learn. I mean, I'll be honest. There was a period when I didn't. I was just waiting until my wife stopped talking so I could speak. Didn't hear the words she said. And so, I mean, it took me a long time, but I learned to listen, which is essential. And the song out years ago said, understanding is the best thing in the world
Yes.
between a boy and a girl.
Yes.
And you've got to have understanding.
Absolutely.
Understand her feelings and she understand mine. And we both learn to listen.
Absolutely.
See, people think communication is just spoken communication. But the Bible talks, tell us about preaching, spoken communication between man and God. That's just one form of communication. But you've demonstrated and illustrated so many forms of communication.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it goes beyond what we had talked about here today.
Yeah.
There again, Pastor Holmes has said something that is key in regard to listening don't just come naturally. You have to be intentional about that. We need to be intentional about it. And what does it say to someone else when before they can get something out of their mouth, you ran with it?
Yeah.
I don't value what you're saying. And me these days, to be honest with you, my memory is.
Me too.
But what is that saying to someone that's trying to express him or herself? That what you're saying is, are you done yet? Hurry up now, because it's something I want to say.
Hey.
And there are folks that get excited under the sound of their own voice.
Yeah.
They do. They do. But if we listen, do you know how much we can learn from just listening? From just listening. Other than running off half-cocked. Listen, and I declare our responses will be so much. May the words of my mouth, the meditations of my heart be acceptable in my sight, O Lord, in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. Psalm 19:14. That should be our prayer, that whatever we say will be pleasing in God's sight. And with that in mind, let's stop and let's think before we speak. Let us have a word of prayer. Eternal God, our Father, we just thank you for what